Matthew McConaughey's life isn't just a collection of movies and headlines. It's a story that could only happen to someone with his unique blend of charm, unpredictability, and raw authenticity. What happens when you combine heart, humor, and Hollywood's biggest stars? A series of stories so wild, so absurd, and so McConaughey that they're almost too unbelievable to be true. Welcome to a journey that's as smooth and surprising as his legendary drawl. This is the life of a man who doesn't just break the mold, he reinvents it. Matthew McConaughey isn't just a man, he's a force of nature. He doesn't just walk into a room, he fills it with a magnetic energy that draws everyone's eyes and attention. The sexiest man alive isn't merely a title, it's a lifestyle he embodies every single day. His boyish grin, the deep twinkle in his eyes, and the comforting drawl of his voice all add to the perfect recipe that makes him impossible to ignore. But beyond the magnetic allure, beyond the charm and the public persona, Matthew McConaughey's life is as unpredictable as it is fascinating. Despite being a devoted husband and father of three, his life has unfolded in a way that feels almost surreal, often finding himself in situations that are more fiction than fact. One of those situations would forever become part of his legend, a bizarre story that was so unbelievable, yet so uniquely McConaughey, it only solidified his place in the annals of pop culture history. It all started innocently enough, with a casual comment from a friend. "Matthew," they said, their eyes gleaming with mischief, "did you know you play a special role in my life?" There was an undeniable pause. Everyone in the room could sense that whatever was about to come out of Matthew's mouth would be a mix of humor, intrigue, and wit, a perfect cocktail of McConaughey magic. After a moment of theatrical silence, Matthew, with a slight grin and a glint in his eye, responded, No, probably not." The crowd burst into laughter, knowing that the real punchline was coming soon. The air in the room thickened with anticipation. Without skipping a beat, Matthew leaned in slightly, almost as if he were about to divulge a secret. "Please, I do. I play a special part in your life." The moment was perfect, and the audience was on the edge of their seats. "I can't wait to hear this," Matthew teased, pulling everyone into his world. He paused, soaking in the attention, relishing the effect he had on his listeners, and then he dropped the bombshell that would send everyone into a fit of laughter. "Well, my wife and I, we sleep with you almost every night." And just like that, the room exploded with laughter. People were caught off guard by the absurdity, the humor, and the boldness of it all. Matthew wasn't just telling a story, he was orchestrating a moment, playing with his audience in the most delightful way. He waited for the laughter to die down, a grin playing on his lips before continuing. "What?" he said with mock innocence, his voice rich with sarcasm. "Yeah, every night. There's this app called Calm, and it's all thanks to this man's soothing voice," Matthew explained, gesturing to the speaker on the table. "His voice, it's like the voice of an angel." The crowd erupted once more, caught off guard by the sheer ridiculousness of it. Matthew's charm wasn't just about the way he spoke. It was the way he could turn any situation into comedic gold, making even the simplest of moments feel like a cinematic moment. "I turn it on and there he is. Well, hello, everybody." Matthew mimicked the soothing, gentle tone, his delivery spot on. "And my wife, who's from Argentina, always turns to me and says, 'You've got the man talking again, Mike. The man is talking in the bed again.'" The simplicity of it all was perfect, and the audience was once again doubled over in laughter. The absurdity was real, and Matthew knew exactly how to take something as ordinary as an app and turn it into an unforgettable moment. But then the laughter took a back seat, and the mood shifted as Matthew recalled a quieter, more bizarre experience, one that felt more like a scene from a movie than real life. "I was just playing a bit of music, strumming on some bongos at 2:37 in the a.m., he explained, a relaxed tone in his voice. At least that's what the report said. His eyes twinkled with a bit of mischief as he continued, and then the police showed up. Matthew paused dramatically, mimicking the intrusion with his signature flair. "They didn't knock, they just walked right in," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I looked up, and there they were, two blue figures standing in my doorway. My first thought, oh, that's a cop. Then I thought, okay, I'd better turn it down." The scene, as mundane as it might have seemed, became something entirely different in Matthew's hands. He built the tension, letting the audience imagine the ridiculousness of the moment. The room was still, everyone on edge as Matthew continued, and before I knew it, I was pinned against the wall, and yes, he paused again, building the suspense, I was naked. The room burst into uncontrollable laughter. This was Matthew's talent, turning a bizarre moment into something universally funny. "Totally naked, buck naked," he clarified, soaking in the laughter. He wasn't just telling a story, he was performing, drawing the crowd into his world. And somehow, in the absurdity of it all, he managed to make it relatable. It was a story about vulnerability, chaos, and the unexpected. But the craziness didn't stop there. Matthew took the audience on a journey through his experiences on set, particularly with Woody Harrelson. The The two actors had a strong dynamic, but not in the way one might expect. Matthew had hoped for some light-hearted moments on set, but Woody, as usual, was all about the craft. I mean, well, okay, whatever, dude, Matthew laughed, recounting the time. I was hoping we'd throw in a few jokes here and there, you know. But no, Woody was in full-on Rust Cohle mode. All business, no fun. The contrast was stark, yet fitting. Matthew's playful banter collided with Woody's intense method acting. I said, come on, man, we've got to throw in a little fun. But all I got was a long, drawn-out mhm. The difference in energy between the two actors added another layer to Matthew's storytelling. It wasn't just about the lines they spoke. It was about the unspoken moments, the dynamics behind the scenes that made their partnership so intriguing. Then came the infamous 9-hour shoot with Snoop Dogg. This wasn't just another day on set for Matthew. It was a lesson in life, in how quickly things could spiral into unexpected chaos. I was supposed to have some prop weed for a scene, just crushed oregano and herbs, nothing too wild, Matthew recalled with a slight chuckle. But then Snoop showed up. With that, everything changed, and the whole situation turned upside down, Matthew continued, eyes wide with mock surprise. Suddenly we were filming, and at the end of the scene, Snoop looks at me and says, "Yo, Moon Dog," and that's when I realized that wasn't prop weed. That was real Snoop weed. The room erupted with laughter as everyone could picture the scene in their minds. Matthew's delivery was flawless. I went, "Oh, you son of a guy," he said, bringing the story to life in a way that felt genuine yet comical. For 9 hours, Snoop remained the master of his own world, using only cryptic words and expressions. 9 hours later, Snoop hadn't used a single word in English, Matthew laughed, but it was one of the most fun days I've had on set. The next day, he walked in a little hazy, curious about how the night had gone. When he asked, Snoop responded in his signature laid-back style, "You were great, Moon Dog. You hit 4 home runs." The poetic phrasing, the calm approval, it was vintage Snoop, and Matthew couldn't help but laugh. But the craziness wasn't all Hollywood and celebrities. Matthew also shared some deeply personal, surreal moments, like the time he had a dream about being chased by knights and archers through a medieval castle. "What does that even mean?" he asked the room. "Should I get an atlas or something?" Without missing a beat, his co-star quipped, "Maybe you should sign up for medieval times," and the room roared with laughter. And then there were the rumors. Matthew wasn't immune to them either. He had heard the one about the corn dog during the filming of Magic Mike, but he took it all in stride. "Man, I heard a rumor about you," he teased his co-star, "that you shoved not one but 10-foot-long corn dogs in your mouth every day on the set of The Hangover." The room burst out into laughter once again, and Matthew feigned shock. "How did you know that?" It was then that Matthew dropped the line that would define his career. All right," he said, his voice filled with nostalgia. "It was my first day on set, and I was listening to a Live Doors album. Jim Morrison says it in between songs, and I thought, that's it. That's the essence of Wooderson." He slipped into character, the transformation seamless. Wooderson, he's all about his car, getting high, rock and roll, and of course picking up chicks, Matthew continued. "And there I was in my car, high as a kite, listening to rock and roll. And then I saw her, a chick. All right. The room was spellbound. It was a moment that was both simple and profound, encapsulating everything Matthew McConaughey represented. Matthew's journey wasn't just defined by his iconic lines or the roles he played on screen. It was about the people who had shaped him, the experiences that had made him who he was. "I once moved into an old Hollywood neighborhood," he explained, his tone shifting slightly. "The kind of place where you walk down the street and wonder, why is that person here? Well, it turns out, some of the biggest stars lived there long before they made it big. That's where I met Ralphie." Matthew shared the story of Ralphie, who would shout, "Matthew McConaughey, you suck," from across the street. The teasing went on for weeks, but Matthew found the humor in it, laughing at the absurdity of the situation. He didn't take it personally. It was just another quirky chapter in his life. Finally, Matthew talked about his father, a man whose spirit and wild nature had undoubtedly influenced him. "My dad, he was a character," Matthew said, smiling fondly. "One time, he and his friends were at a ranch, drinking, having a good time. The conversation shifted to a bet about how high they could pee, and my dad, seeing a BMX bike nearby, decided to make a bet." Matthew's face lit up as he continued. He said, "My son Jim can pee higher than that," and everyone laughed. But my dad wasn't joking. He drove an hour and a half to town, woke my 12-year-old brother up at 4 a.m. and dragged him out to the barn. My dad said, "Go ahead, boy." And just like that, my brother peed higher than anyone thought possible. As the room laughed along, Matthew's voice softened. "That's the kind of man my dad was, full of surprises, full of heart, and that's the kind of man I aspire to be." Now that you've heard a glimpse into Matthew McConaughey's world, what's your favorite wild tale? From unforgettable movie moments to the bizarre realities of his daily life, the story of his career and his journey continues to captivate us. Keep reading and step deeper into his world of chaos, charm, and comedy. Are you ready to laugh, be inspired, and maybe even rethink your own life in the process? Let's dive into more unforgettable stories from Matthew McConaughey's legendary existence.